Our next conversation is about justice, and it's seeking to understand the law and to understand justice. Former President of the Law Society of Kenya, Eric Theuri, is here with us. Eric, good morning.
Good morning to you.
You doing well?
Well as I can in this cold...
Under the circumstances.
You say, and under the local standards.
Under the local standards. That's a nice one.
We learn a new one every day.
Under the local standards.
I'm okay under the local standards.
Yep.
Sawa. Karibu sana. Jano is going to welcome you with the day's quote.
Yeah. Also, it's 12 degrees centigrade. Just thought I'd put that out there.
Where?
It's
cold.
It's cold. Nairobi. In Nairobi.
Yeah,
there's other parts.
Tigoni must be lower.
Tigoni must be lower. The quote today is by Ernest Hemingway, a well-known author. He was born on July 21st, many years ago. And in his book, A Farewell to Arms, one of the quotes he said is, "The world breaks everyone, and afterward, many are strong at the broken places." How would you translate that? How does it make sense for you?
I mean, obviously, the way I look at it is it's how we respond to the challenges that we face, because each and every one of us will face our challenges. So how we respond will determine whether those challenges break us or we surmount our challenges.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
It is.
It's a good way of putting it. Eric, thank you for joining us. We want to understand the law today. Okay, so you're basically here as a law lecturer, not in a law classroom, okay, but teaching lay persons. So to set the stage, we know that there are several people who've been arrested after the protests, particularly the Sabasaba protests, and they've been arraigned in court, and the police are saying we'd like to charge these people with terrorism. The leadership of the country has said that what happened on Sabasaba Day was terrorism. And even what had happened on July 25th, in some cases, they termed it as terrorism. Over the weekend, we saw activist Boniface Mwangi. He was arrested. And the DCI said we are arresting him over, and we are investigating him over terrorism charges. First, let's listen to his spouse, Jerry. Jerry went to visit him at the police station yesterday, accompanied by lawyers and a team of civil society activists. And they said that they found him in good shape. And then after we hear from Jerry, we'll hear from the lawyer about the items that were picked from Boniface's office, which included hard drives, an exploded tear gas canister, an unused one bullet. Why must it be called round of ammunition? Just call it bullet. Anyway, let's hear from Jerry and the lawyer.
Seen him, he's well, he's in high spirits, they've taken good care of him. He has attested to it as well. They have given us full access. What we've seen is this intimidation by the police, and coming for Boni is something that we saw coming. They've arrested many young people and on the same charges of terrorism, arson.
We are yet to confirm its validity to search his premises at the office. It was exclusive to the office, but we can also confirm that they conducted a search at his residential home in Lukenya, and they carried away a few things. We can confirm and we can state with no uncertainty that those are things that Boniface did not have in his possession.
So now it will bring in a whole issue of what is it that police claim that they found in the office,
right,
and whether these things were actually in Boniface's office. Janja Maina is the advocate representing Boniface Mwangi in this particular case. So Eric, let's begin from just simple definitions. What is terrorism?
Terrorism is quite broad, but obviously it involves organization. It involves financing, and it involves a plan to disrupt public order. And if you look at the definition of terrorism as contained in our laws, you would find that those would be the elements of it. And somehow I can see why the police are looking at that, because if you can be able then to show that there was an organization, and that organization has sort of quote unquote like an army, or it was created for purposes of ensuring there is public disorder, destruction of property, maiming of people, killing of people, then that in itself would could be said to amount to terrorism. But that said and done, I think that, and this is where my concern is, that obviously we have a social problem in this country, and that social problem is manifesting itself in the manner in which a huge population of our country is feeling dissatisfied with so many things, be taxes and all this agitation that has been there. And this agitation has then resulted in several protests that have been seen. And the evolution of this protest has been from a largely peaceful protest into a protest that then is infiltrated by goons. And what we have seen also is that you have had policemen captured on video and camera working side by side with people that are obviously not policemen, because they are carrying rungus, and they are in civilian wear, and then they appear to be having police protection. Now, if you look at that in itself is a definition, fits into the definition of terrorism. So that's the first thing. And then the second is that that evolution in terms of police giving protection to goons, and also the fact that previously in the other Maandamanos, the Law Society went to court and obtained certain decrees, which to the effect that when policemen are going to break any riots, they shouldn't be in civilian wear. Now, we have also seen incidences of people believed to be policemen in civilian wear, heavily armed, and going to break out protest. So to that extent, you cannot be sure whether they are police or a private militia. And to that extent, again, and I'm talking about the evolution of this, to that extent, again, those are acts of terrorism. If we are to go into that direction. And I say this because it is the obvious bias and in this evolution that is creating a problem, a rule of law problem for all of us.
Yeah. So the infiltration in its own is an act of terrorism. I want to come back to that in just a moment, but I wondered if you could break down legal differences between unlawful assembly, rioting, and terrorism within the Kenyan legal framework, because it seems like those lines are being blurred a lot. Just very briefly, and then we can go back to...
There's nothing as an unlawful assembly that the courts have spoken about, and anytime they have tried to charge anyone with that charge, it has always flopped because the courts have already spoken. The only assembly, the Constitution requires people to assemble peacefully and unarmed. And when you, of course, then assemble peacefully and unarmed, you are okay. When you assemble and you are armed, then you are creating an offense, and it is no longer, it's not about that assembly. It is actually the fact that you are armed. And one of the reasons why there is a notification to the police is for the police to ensure that actually there is peace and order during that assembly, and so that anyone found armed would either be charged for, being in possession of a weapon or something to that extent, but not engaging in an unlawful assembly. Of course, a riot, and so when then we now look at terrorism, and terrorism, as I've told you, contains a series of acts as has been defined in the act. I could probably just read them for you, because so what the law defines is a terrorist act. So a terrorist act means an act or a threat of action that involves the use of violence against a person, endangers the life of a person other than the person committing the action, creates a serious risk to the health or safety of the public or a section of the public, results in serious damage to property, involves the use of firearm or explosive, involves the release of any dangerous, hazardous, toxic or radioactive substance or microbial or other biological agent or toxin into the environment, interferes with an electronic system resulting in the disruption of communication services, interferes or disrupts the provision of essential or emergency services, and 9, prejudices national security of public safety, and is carried out with the aim of intimidating or causing fear amongst members of the public or a section of the public, intimidating or compelling the government or international organization to do or refrain from doing any act, destabilizing the religious, political, constitutional, economic, or social institutions of a country or an international organization. So it has various elements, and it is intended to achieve a certain function. And so that is why I was saying, if you look at even the evolution of it, then you can see. So what is the purpose, for example, of those policemen who are seen with guns coming out and shooting at civilians in civilian wear, in balaclavas, so you cannot even be able to identify who they are? And they intended to create fear in the public. Then that fits squarely into the definition of terrorism. So if that is the direction that the government wants to take, shouldn't it then have started there?
I'm stuck at the point of why the government would even be taking that direction in the first place, right? Is there a justification for it? Because I think, you can correct me here, but terrorism will then move into that realm of crimes that are very, very, very extremely serious, right? To the stability of the state and the safety of people. And that's why if you're taken, there is a special court. And if you're taken to that court, then also in terms of bail and bond terms, there are various provisions for it. That actually here you can be held a bit longer, right?
Yes.
And because it's considered serious. So you can't just say that because you participated in an activity that ended with the serious damage to property, that automatically you're taken to terrorism. Because there are other laws under Eric that would deal with if an act or a threat of action results in serious damage to property. Is this the only law that is applicable?
It is not, and for me that is the point of concern. We really need to understand this, that our first problem is that we are using the law and the police to respond to a manifestation of a social problem. And that in itself is not going to sort out the problem that we're having. In fact, it's going to excavate it. It is excavating it because as it is implemented, it is obvious to everyone. I mean, it is obvious to me, and I hope that it is obvious to you and to nearly a majority of us, that to charge Boniface Mwangi or any of these people with acts of terrorism is completely ridiculous. It has no legal basis. You may want to, use how terrorism is defined to meet, to show that, that some of those things happen. But, I mean, it's much more than that. And that is the reason why the constitutional protections of being presented in court within 24 hours if for any offense or within 14 days don't even apply to terrorism. The period within which a suspect can be held in a terrorism case, I think, is about 90 days or 60 days.
Right.
So it is a serious criminal offense. It involves a lot of organization, a lot of financial, and people sitting somewhere and actually planning to obviously cause death and destruction within a country.
Right.
And so when we use our laws selectively to punish in an attempt to deal with a manifestation of a social problem, we do not cure the problem. What we are actually doing is that we are creating an even bigger problem. I really hope that those who are advising the government will actually sit and take a look and ask themselves, all the actions that have been taken from July 25th when they were the first protest and you know how it boiled out from that, have they made this country safer, or are they continuing to make this country unsafe?
Right.
It is getting to a point where if I am arrested today, the concern of everyone is whether I will be alive tomorrow.
Yeah.
So if you have a police service, and I was about to call it a force, that is not known for obeying court orders, that is known for killing people, is now quote unquote like a public enemy, that when you see the police, instead of feeling safe, you feel unsafe. What are we creating? Because if these are the same people who we need, and we really desperately need the police to maintain law and order, but if they have such a reputation, what is supposed to happen when there's unease, a situation of violence or a situation of, and that's the country that we are creating, and I think that perhaps that is what the government is trying to respond to. But unfortunately, the government is also not honest in that response, because it has its own private militia, it has its own who are engaging in these very acts, who are not being charged.
Right. I wanted to ask you something. The Prevention of Terror Act is quite clear on its definition, like you've read, and I think this is just my thinking that the writers of this law made the threshold high for a reason, because it's not that you have engaged in an act that causes death or serious harm or intimidates and causes fear. It is right? So that the threshold is quite high, that you cause grievous harm, serious damage to property, health risk or safety of the public, interfering with an electronic system, and you're intimidating and causing fear, and you're doing this for political or religious reasons.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let me just finish. Let me read for you something so that you will get more context.
Okay.
Now, after we've defined it, this is what now the law says. Provided that an act which disrupts any service and is committed in pursuance of a protest, demonstration, or stoppage of work shall not be deemed to be a terrorist act within the meaning of this definition, so long as the act was not intended to result in any harm referred to in the preceding paragraph.
Right. Again, wisdom from the writers. They've made the threshold quite high, and it is and. You must meet all of these criteria, and protests are exempted from that, provided that they were not intended to cause harm, etc. So then that brings the question, as the DCI, as a police officer, what's the threshold then for charging someone with terrorism? When you're getting a warrant of arrest for terrorism, what evidence must you have? Because clearly the threshold to prove that this is an act of terror is quite high.
And that's the thing that I was saying. I looked at the affidavit that was used to obtain a search warrant for Boniface Mwangi's office. And I almost felt like crying in shame because it disclosed nothing. You see, one of the things they were saying, it's robbery with violence, arson, and whatever, and all those are crimes against a person. If there's robbery with violence, I robbed Janet. Janet is the complainant, and Janet has said, I saw Theuri. And so if you are coming to conduct a search, you're probably just coming to conduct a search at my place to confirm if what...
Her phone is at your house.
Her phone is at my house. But you don't even need to do that because already evidence of that act is already there. There were questions about arson. And then the last one, you see, terrorism and you know, and financing of terrorism, which is anti-money laundering issues. And so you look at it and you wonder how a court properly exercising its mind can allow that kind of illegality, because it is obviously not warranted. But besides that, the issue here is this, that the reason why the law is structured as this is to be able to give the security apparatus the advantage, the technical advantage to investigate what is obviously a very complex criminal activity. Because those that seek to engage in terrorism activities are actually, if you are to talk of dark hats, they have the most dark hat. Because they sit and they, you know, they even look at the numbers. How many people can we kill? Yeah, and so it involves a complex web of financing, sourcing for weapons, and all that. Now, when you look at what is happening locally, it makes you feel like you just want to cry, and you ask yourself, yes, we are desperate, but are we? Is our police force this desperate? And sometimes I look at our police and I understand the kind of pressure, because I've dealt with police and I know that a lot of them are very professional. When you talk to them, they will tell you, you know, our hands are tied. Even them, they know that Boni is not, and all these people they have charged for terrorism, there is nothing, but they have instructions to charge these people with terrorism. But if they had been allowed to actually do their work and do their work professionally, perhaps we would not be where we are, because it is political interference.
Right. Sorry to interrupt you. We are going into a break, but we have a caller. We'll take their question and then go into a break. Peterson from Nairobi, good morning. Do you have a question for Wakili or a comment? Peterson?
Yes, please.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Yes, Mbugwa, good morning.
Good morning. Go ahead. What's your question or comment this morning?
You know, it's not even a question, it's a concern. A very, very big concern that our police and our institutions, everything in Kenya have been politicized. We are having a father leading a house, a father who has toxic words from him, a father who wants to take us. And if we just see how the police and other forces are behaving, they're just behaving like Ugandans, the Ugandan police forces, whereby in Uganda you can't criticize the president, you can't criticize any politician, and this is the Ugandan way, and our president is trying to bring the Ugandan style to Kenya, and this will not happen. So I'm just trying to tell him all, ask him to bring back his senses and connect back to people. Then he will make it to rule or lead the people as the president.
Thank you, Peterson. Thank you for that comment and everything that you've said. I think we take that break and then we continue this conversation. Eric Theuri, former president of the Law Society of Kenya, is our guest this morning. We are getting to understand terrorism and what the law says about terrorism. What's the threshold for charging someone with terrorism? And then we shall ask, so what happens to those hundreds that are in court and facing terrorism charges? Keep it here for that. We'll be back in a moment.
I know we're getting back to our conversation in just a moment with Eric Theuri. I just wanted to sample one or two comments as we also maybe later respond to what John had said. What was his name, the caller before? I really
Peterson. That was Peterson, yes.
I'm starting to sound like those people. What was his name again? We have still Mike the One. Terrorism is a serious legal accusation. Jumping to conclusions without facts bypasses due process and the principle of innocent until proven guilty. Ian Mooley says, as things stand, more civilians have been charged with terrorism than actual terrorists. And it's an absurdity. So even the one charged for stealing, we show them stealing. So he's arguing, are you still saying that this is political? Anyway, it's a conversation. Some people might find the charges valid. Some people may not. But at the end of the day, what does the act say? And are the courts then respecting that? But let's continue with our conversation.
Right. No, there's Samuel Masharia says, good morning, fixers. I guess the system doesn't understand the meaning of terrorism. Tumesota wasituzie uoga.
Fear-mongering is probably... I'm just trying to understand if you know, in fact, what safeguards exist actually to prevent the misuse of that act, because it seems like that's what's happening. I'm even curious if there's any safeguards that exist, because it seems politically motivated, but then are there safeguards that exist to protect people?
The safeguards that are there are largely constitutional. And the first person with the primary obligation is actually the DCI. That before they charge you, or before they arrest you, or prefer charges against you, then they must ensure that they have conducted proper investigations and that those investigations are thorough and they reveal what you would call a culpable offense. And then the second safeguard is the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, who is under the law then the so-called protector of public interest. So he again must review the evidence that has been presented by DCI and determine that they disclose an offense and an offense known to law, and that the evidence and the ingredients of that offense on the face of it disclose the offense that has been alleged, and then approve the charges. Then the third safeguard would be at the court, because the court, in a very limited role, can interrogate the charges at the point when they are introduced, and when, for example, they disclose an offense not known in law, then at that point it can be stopped. But the next stage is the safeguard in terms of a fair process as trial process as contained in our constitution. So perhaps we need to get to a point where we may have a trial process of interrogating some of these things, because if we had that, then a lot of them would fail at that stage. Unfortunately, for the court process, once there is a proper charge sheet that has been presented, then you have to go through the trial. And for me, it's obvious that other than charging these persons with terrorism, those charges are not going to go anywhere, and which is the tragic part about it, because what it basically means is that you are weaponizing the criminal justice system, because for as long as you face a criminal trial, if you want to travel out of the country, you need to tell the court, I'm traveling out of the country, I'll be back this is my visa, I'm not running away, because you can be stopped at the airport and someone says you are running away, so you need to inform the court. There are so many things you can't do just because you're having a criminal trial. And there is always a cloud against you until when that case is determined. And I think that is what the state may want to achieve in this instance, but it is using the criminal trial process for the wrong reasons. I remember when we had the first Mandamano, is it 2023, and a lot of people were arrested and charged with so many offenses, and people were just walking home. Yeah, and that's the tragic part about it, is that a lot of people who get arrested by the police are actually not the ones who are involved in the Mandamano. So you are walking home, you are arrested, a supermarket has been looted somewhere, they say you looted that supermarket. You are shocked in the first instance. Because there's no relationship between what you are doing and the charge that you've been charged with.
Right.
It will be the same if you interview a lot of these people who've been charged with terrorism. You just find that someone was, just walking home, trying to make a way, living, wrong place, wrong time, and then you're being charged with terrorism.
Right. And
so when you come out of there, you come out very angry.
Very radicalized, I think. And sorry to interrupt you, but I was threading on what you said, and I thought about so many young people in the hundreds, I think my numbers were wrong, who are facing terrorism charges now. Some of them may not be able to afford bail or bond, so they may end up in prison, again, for charges that are flimsy, one, and then like you said, they may have just been on their way home. They may have just gone to the supermarket. They may have been sent by their folks. They may have been picking up their siblings from school. We had a bail and bond conversation. When it gets to the judiciary now, because there's already, some problems in even the charges, like you said. But when it gets to the judiciary now, how do we stop further weaponization of this Prevention of Terror Act so that now people are not sitting in jail, unable to afford bail or bond, that their freedoms are not being curtailed any further? They don't have to, report to a police station. They're not able to travel out of the country. They can't get a certificate of good conduct, all of that.
The judiciary has been extremely sensitive, in my view, in most of these cases. You've seen the bond terms that they have given are usually reasonable. The problem here is that because of the problems that we have in the country, you may find that even if it's a bond where there's, terrorism, some serious offense that should attract high bond terms, because the court knows what is happening, it will give you like 50,000. But not everyone can afford 50,000. And so you will find that some people are unable to raise it, and then after some time you come back and you say, what, can you review it? Because as we are saying, all of us know that there is no terrorism involved in this. The policeman knows this, the DPP knows it, the court knows it. But there is a charge before the court. And the court has no role in approving that charge.
The charge.
Yeah, the charge comes before it. It is a proper charge. So of course the court might ask the DPP, are you really serious about this? But there's nothing that the court can do at that instance, because it has to go through the trial, and if the court finds there was no evidence, then it will acquit the person. So that's the process. And the challenge here is that even though there is that sensitivity, you first must be given bond. Then if you are unable to afford it, then after some time, then the court can review it and review it further until a time when the court is comfortable that you can be able to or not sustain the bond. So the challenge in all of this is that whoever is going through that process knows that he is being subjected to an unfair process
already.
And it boils down, because it is not just that person, it is everyone around him, it is the community, and what you are doing is that an institution that is now supposed and intended to protect us from the wrongdoers is actually the institution that is perpetrating the wrong. Yeah.
Sorry, Wakili, another quick one.
Yeah.
You said something earlier. So courts cannot throw out cases that are flimsy. If, as a magistrate, a charge comes before you and it is clearly flimsy, that does not meet the threshold for the charge, is it only the ODPP that can withdraw the charge? Can the magistrate also just throw the case out?
They cannot. If they can only throw it out if it does not disclose an offense known in lieu.
Okay.
Yeah. But if it does, you may have your doubt whether there is enough evidence. You can read the charge and probably look at the witnesses and say,
and make the decision.
And in your mind, you can tell that this is going to be a difficult case to prove. The same way as lawyers, because we are all trained in law. So the moment you read a charge sheet, you can be able to tell whether this is something that can be proved or not.
I want to ask a quick question on whether the judiciary, how the judiciary in the past has handled terror-related cases for non-terrorist acts. Because I'm wondering whether at any point there was a precedent set for what we're seeing now, whether the court pushed back, if there's any example that comes to mind, or whether this is kind of not a first of its kind.
It's probably a first of its kind.
Okay.
It's probably a first of its kind. Remember that in the past, what we have dealt with are real terrorist cases, and I think the judiciary then responded, and has always responded in a manner to assist the police and the DPP in ensuring that those who clearly have an intention to harm the Kenyan citizens are kept at bay. The danger with what we are with what we are seeing right now is that it really calls into question. And let me give you this illustration. We have seen so many times, I've used my phone to tweet and say something bad about a politician, and I'm arrested. And I'm charged for misuse of communication equipment. Now, when you look at the issue of communication equipment, is that it is actually intended to deal with hackers, people who are using an equipment to interfere with a communication system. Yeah. But you will find that the police will charge me for using my phone. You try and conceptualize how is it that a policeman cannot understand that the use of my phone to issue an insulting message cannot be misuse of a communication system. Now, there's the same problem that we are having, that this policeman, despite what the law says, is unable to comprehend that this person has not committed terrorism. Now, if you ask me to believe that of the Kenyan police force, I choose not to believe that. I know that they know that that does not constitute an offense. So the question then becomes, why is it that they are responding that way? So the only logical inference you can make is that they are under political pressure.
Right.
Right.
And it's not the first time. And our next guest for the next hour is actually invited for this particular reason, that he was arrested in the 80s under the guise of being a Mwakenya. And Mwakenya then was this group of people who were having political agitation, and the state declared that they were Marxists. They were pushing some certain ideologies that were repressive, and they wanted to overthrow the state. And so they were rounded up, arrested, taken to torture chambers, taken to court after the point when they've agreed that they are going to confess. They confess and they are jailed. Others fled the country. So it had this kind of direction. And here we are seeing a political conversation being converted and being used to the most serious criminal act in our laws here, which is terrorism. What can lawyers such as yourself, citizens such as us, do in response to this legally? Because this is the beginning of people being charged over terrorism, where everybody plus their cat can clearly see terrorism is a bit of a stretch here. But what can we do then to push back on that?
What we are doing is probably the right thing, to talk about it, to express how ridiculous some of these things are, and to also highlight, not just to the public but to the decision makers, that the route they are taking is a very dangerous route, because it is a route that can only lead to one result, and that is anarchy. When the state is actively fighting its people, there can only be one outcome, and that outcome is anarchy. So even though we may want to give the government the benefit of doubt that they are looking at what is happening and they're trying to find a way to deal with it, this kind of, you cannot commit an offense to stop an offense. Because at one point then, does one become legal? Right. And that's what they are doing. They are committing illegalities to suppress an illegality. So the government and the people who are maybe on this other side are on the same threshold, yet the government has the resources, has the law, and clearly it is obvious to everyone that the government does not want to operate within the law to deal with the situation that we are having. And that is, to a larger extent, perhaps the bigger problem that we're having, that we have laws in our country, but those laws are only being implemented selectively. Right. And that's now where we are having a problem. Perhaps we just need to go back to a place where we now say, you know what, this is what the Constitution says. Let us all abide by it.
Can there be a petition in court to challenge this? Is there anything like that?
Obviously, I expect that that people are going to challenge it. And the problem with challenging some of these things in court is that our jurisprudence is that the Constitution gives certain safeguards. And as long as those safeguards exist, the courts have always been of the view that if you go through this process, eventually, if there is no evidence against you because of the constitutional safeguards, the court will acquit you. But maybe one of the other things that we now need to do is to have a pre-trial process that can then examine the legality of the charge that has been presented to you, look into, have a very brief conversation about the evidence that is there, and whether that evidence meets the threshold. And if the courts find that that does not work, then they drop it at that point. Because to go through a criminal trial with that tag for 2 years, and then eventually there is no evidence against you and the court releases you, I mean, it has literally held your life hostage
for 2 years.
For 2 years. And even though that appears to be the intention, it is actually the wrong use of the criminal trial process.
It is. I have so many questions. Also, that brings to mind what Eric likes to say. Do we arrest then investigate, or investigate and then arrest? And I think a pre-trial conference would also fall into that. Do we get the validity of charges, then proceed to trial? Or do we go to trial and see the validity of the charges? It's a fair question. But I had several questions. One, what does this do for now actual terror investigations? Because I feel like there's a dilution of it when you weaponize the Prevention of Terror Act against people who are, largely peaceful. What does it do now to people who are investigating actual terrorists? And as a country that has faced terror threats in the past, is this a dilution of law, and does it pose any dangers?
Yeah, it does. Anytime you derogate from non-legal standards, you make the country unsafe. You dilute the efficacy of the judicial and the criminal justice system. So that is the obvious danger that we are facing. That when a time comes, and you see, courts operate on what we call precedents. Then the next time, because of this heat and all this unpleasantness, even to judicial officers, with regards to the warrants that they gave for such, the next time a an investigator now has a proper case to investigate terrorism and goes before a magistrate who has had an unpleasant experience of being misused during this process.
Right.
Obviously, that magistrate may refuse to give an order that is warranted because at that point the law has been diluted, and that's the danger.
That's very
and I really hope that the people who are pushing this direction can see what they are doing to this to the justice system. That when the next person is charged as a result of serious concerns that they are engaging in terrorist activities, even the public perception would be that perhaps, this is not, because why? He's not a serious person. Yeah? Look at what has happened right now, and I keep saying this, and I say this because I've interacted with someone like the DCI boss. I mean, I know he's a very good professional. I mean, he's dedicated to his work, and he has given, the criminal justice system a lot of dedication in terms of the work that he has done. But you remember the other day when he was telling us about somebody in a police cell hitting his head against a wall and then it turned out that he was actually lying. Yeah? What does that do to his credibility the next time there is a crisis? And he actually comes out and says, and that time he's saying, this is what has happened, this is what has happened. So that is exactly what we are doing to our police force and to our investigators who are well-trained, who have gone to some of the best investigation schools, and we have very, very competent investigators. But what you are doing is that we are diluting everything that they have ever done.
Sorry, last question. Can someone sue the state for wrongful arrest, wrongful charges if these don't hold up in court?
Yes, that can be done.
Okay. All right. I think we're coming to the end of it. There's some quick feedback here. Does it mean those who draft charge sheets against offenders are not professionals? If so, they aren't doing what they're employed to do, hence they should be dismissed. These are quick fire. Eric, you'll see whether you can say yes or no, because we have a minute to the break. That's Gilbert Manyasi. Peter Otieno is just giving a quote. There's no greater tyranny than that which is perpetrated under the shield of the law in the name of justice. I think that was the question here. Yeah, he just asked those who are drafting charge sheets, why do they not seem to know what they're doing?
Well, even us, we are concerned about that.
Okay.
Yeah. Even they are concerned. Even they, if you ask them, they'll tell you, Eric Theuri, former president LSK, has been our guest. Thank you very much for joining us. In the next hour, we talk to Oduoro Ngwen. He is the executive director of ODM and a former political detainee. Keep it here for that.